Hi, I'm Doc Martin for KRAZ TV, the Lone Journalist. Well, I'm here to do a book review for our Zero channel. That's right, it's called True Brews, about food. It's how to craft fermented cider, beer, wine, sake, soda, mead, kefir, and kombucha at home. It's by Emma Christensen. Let's see. She is, it's by Quattro, one of my favorite presses, or 10-speed press. And let me see what I can find out about her. It's all about, making small batches and carbonating it. So I don't really see acknowledgement book list. Well, here it is. There's the author. Emma Christensen is a food writer, beer reviewer, and home brewer living in San Francisco Bay Area. She is a recipe editor for the popular home cooking website, The Kitchen, www.thekitchen.com, and a graduate of the Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Emma previously worked for the beer reviewer for Ohio's Columbus Dispatch and wrote a twice-monthly syndicated recipe column for Tribune Media Services for several years before turning to editing and cookbook writing. To learn more, visit EmmaElizabethChristensen.blogspot.com. It really is a wonderful little, and it's not thick, and it's everything you can do to make it all. You can make naturally fermented brews, 10 batches of kombucha, and brew your own beer in the smallest apartment kitchen with little more equipment than a soup pot, a plastic bucket, and a long-handled spoon. All you need is the know-how. This is where Erin Christensen comes in, distilling a wide variety of projects from mead to kefir to sake to their simplest forms, making the process fun and accessible for home brewers. All 50-plus recipes in True Brews stem from the same basic techniques and core equipment, so it's easy for you to experiment with your favorite flavors and add-ins once you grasp the fundamentals. Covering a tantalizing range of recipes including coconut water kefir, root beer, honey green tea, kombucha, pear cider, gluten-free pale ale, chai spiced mead, cloudy cherry sake, and plum wine. These fresh beverages make an impressive homemade offerings for hostess gifts, happy hours, and thirsty friends alike. The real secret, now I'm a winemaker, so I know exactly what she's doing here, and the real secret to any of this and all of this is cleanliness. That's all it really is. Don't let the bugs, you're going to get yeast, you can use different kinds of yeast, and then there's some other bacterias and molds and stuff like that that can make the carbonations and the kombucha and stuff like that. But you have to be fairly, really clean and clean all your glassware and all of that. And the next thing you have to know about when you're making this is don't put too much sugar to carbonate because the bottles will explode. Now she talks about using pressure-safe bottles, but I can tell you in sparkling wine, we're using 6 atmospheres. That's 90 psi, and that's way above anything you'd want to do with these. But once we degorged it, it was down to a manageable 50 psi, which is still 3 atmospheres above normal pressure. So soda is only atmosphere and a half or something like that, or some of this other stuff. So it's fizzy and fizzantes and all of that, but it isn't like roaring, bubbly. Now she says also to use some of these things that are called the 2-liter bottles of the soda bottles because they're made to withstand the pressure. And as an experiment, you pour you may put glass on a lot of your product, but use soda bottles And when you cap it off, when you feel it and it's hard as a rock, it's got the right pressure, you know. So there's probably 30 pounds or something in there. And then when you let the pressure off, it goes down a little bit. So, but it's very fascinating, and I really like the book. It's a very small thing. You use a little hand jobs. You can get you can go to your local brew stores. You can get all the little corkers and cappers, minor sulfites if you need to use them. Of course, you're probably going to have to. You can find out about different yeasts and all of that. But yeah, she also interviews all these people, like for Soda Pop. She does Jesse Friedman, founder of Soda Craft, and so he has a talk. She interviews all these different people. And so he says, well, our sodas are naturally fermented using yeast for carbonation. And it says, the trickiest part of soda making is getting consistency between batches. We also limit ourselves to using local produce. And fresh fruit is really the best. So, what's the really one thing homebrewers should do to improve their sodas? Get a really fresh, good juicer for juice. That's helpful. Then start with really, really good ingredients. If you can start with fresh fruit, you'll end up with better soda every time. So, and she asked him, how did you get started? He said, as a small home brewer. And so that's when he got hooked on the thing. So, it just is like that all throughout your kombucha. As Eric Childs, founder, owner, and kombucha brewer at Kombucha, Brooklyn. He tried making it, and he said he was very loyal, but he started making it, and so he ordered a culture. And there's like a pad or a SCOBY they call it, and you put that in there, and you can take it out and reuse it. Just like kefir, it has grains, and you reuse those and restart your batches all the time. So what's a SCOBY? SCOBY stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. It's a patty of cellulose that's made by bacteria during fermentation. That patty contains all the life that's in kombucha, the yeast, and the bacteria together. So they do use mostly tea. I'm sure that there are other things, but I've noticed that a lot of kombuchas are teas. So the troubleshooting is it says the SCOBY will last a long time, but if it comes black, it's lost its lifespan. Stick to the ratio of sugar, starter tea, and outlined in the recipe. So the big thing is follow the recipes, because they're tried and true in this book. And there's just kefir is another one. So she interviews Nancy Van Brosch Hamren, originator and namesake of Nancy's Yogurt in Eugene, Oregon. So she started making kefir within 2 years. She said things that are fermented are easier to digest. That's really true. When you add bacteria yeast, they break down the casein and lactose, and fermenting makes the food more available to the body to digest. What's the one thing homebrewers could do to improve their kefir? I love the idea of people playing with their food. Don't be afraid, just goof around and see how it works. Play with your variables till you get what you want. Kefir grains are mesophilic, so they're designed to grow themselves at room temperature. A few teaspoons of powdered milk will help increase the solids and help the bacteria and grow, because that's what they feed on. I love kefir, and I've only do goat's milk myself, because that has got a 2 casein versus a 1 casein, which is in cow's milk. And I found out that it may take hours or a while to start really breaking down and using milk products, but with with goat's milk, it's within 15 minutes. So it's really the best. Now, hard cider. I'm really into cider lately, because we tried some last year and it really came out well. So she interviews Jeffrey House, owner of ACE Cider, Sebastopol, California, and you can find their products in a lot of places. What makes a truly stellar cider? I like balance. I want a certain sweetness, a certain aromas, and a nice crisp finish. So therefore, that is just like in winemaking. You want acidity and sweetness or alcohol content. So it's a balance there. If it's too acidy, it's angular, they call that descriptors. What's the most thing that home brewers could do to improve their ciders? Experiment and see what you like. Sometimes, and see what you like. I think sometimes home brewers make ciders too strong. They don't cut off the fermentation. They let it go. They want it bone dry, and then it finishes up very strong. We call that scrumpy in England. So the sake, though, it gets up there about 12-16%. They're using rice and the thing called koji. It's another type of spore that eats on the sugars and produces the alcohol. I don't know if I've seen sparkling sake or not. So, but mead is a big deal too. Now that's made from honey, and that is I've tasted some great honey, and it says the most important thing for us in mead making is use the highest ingredients. Sanitation. What's the important thing to improve their meads? He says sanitation and keep it away from oxygen. Keep everything sanitized and clean, period. Get into the habit, wash, rinse, and sanitize. Spend the extra bucks to get the best ingredients you can. So, then they have beer making, of course. They have the boiling of the wort and all of that. Now the sake. I'm not covering every product in here, but mostly. Sake 1 is by Greg Lorenz. He's Forest Grove, Oregon. So he said, I'm actually a lab tech with a degree in plant biology. So brewing is tricky because you can't actually see the yeast or the koji spore. You can only see the results. I can't look at the individuals of fiber, but I can use the heat it produces and draw conclusions on what's going on. All fermentation does warm up. In fact, in winemaking, we had to have jackets around the large tanks because the larger the volume, the heat doesn't get away. And when you get up high, you don't want that. So you really want to cold brewing or cool brewing is really the best in all of these. If you can keep your temperatures down, and they say usually 55 to 70, somewhere in there. But actually, when I was in the business, they actually can get a champagne yeast, believe it or not, that will ferment down to 38 degrees. So, of course, that's what I would use, and we did use it at Sonoyta Vineyards. So what if the one thing you'd like to improve their sake? Control the environment as much as possible. If we mess around with the temperature by a few degrees, that's a big difference. Buy a cheap refrigerator and use it. So you got to cool it down because of this. So, brewing sake, it doesn't talk about, now, Nagori style means it's cloudy. There's a cloud to it, a lot of haze. A lot of these drinks have clouds. Some of the wines and stuff, if you let it settle down in the bottle and then you rack it off in the clear area, you will get clear. And sparkling wine, we would put the extra yeast in there, and when it got cloudy, we'd turn it upside down and shake it and rattle it down, and all the yeast would go on its point. And then you always carried the bottle upside down, and then you chill and freeze that little neck, and then when you bring it up and blow it off, that's called the dégorgement, you would blow that yeast out, and then you could add dosage like more brandy or a little sweetener or whatever, and then cork it. A lot of people are going from corks to bottle caps. They're going back to it, and it may not look as pretty and elegant and stuff, but I'll tell you, you have to let corks and bottles, especially champagne bottles, to sit for 6 months before they pencil down where you can get them out of the bottle. So a lot of winemakers I know are using bottle caps, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I love roll-on pilfer proofs on the caps now. The cork is going away, and it can get bleached. And if it gets bleached and then gets mold in it, then it has a nasty trichloranisol is what it's called. But anyways, that's just my pointers. But and get the book, True Brews. It's a handcrafted fermented cider, beer, wine, sake, soda, mead, kefir, and kombucha by Emma Christensen. Get it like we did at your Pima County, like we did at our Pima County Public Library, and enjoy it. And of course, be safe and stay clean.